Welcome to Strategic Knowledge for Project Management presented by the Oil and Gas Project Professional Institute, OGPPI, in association with American University of Malta. My name is Stephen Scholl. I'm the founder and managing director of the Oil and Gas Project Professional Institute, OGPPI. You might ask, what is OGPPI all about? Well, it's all about knowledge transfer. Yes, knowledge transfer. It's about taking the experience I've gained in over 40 years of my work in project, program and portfolio delivery and transferring it to you. I was asked one time to define project management in one word. After some thought I responded, adventure. For me it has been an adventure that has taken me around the globe into hundreds of different locations and countries. If you think that project management is something new and mysterious that you haven't seen before, think again. It might be hard to believe, but we are all project managers in our everyday life. If you have planned a vacation, a birthday party, or made plans to take this course, you have been doing project management. It doesn't take a multi-million-dollar project to qualify you as a project manager. But for those who would like to make project management their profession, it is very beneficial to get insider information about what to watch for during project cycle. And that's why I created OGPPI. My instructional team includes experts that have thousands of hours of practical experience in project management from initiation to project closure. Together we will be sharing our knowledge, guiding you in your studies and answering your questions that will come up along the way. So let's get our adventure started with Introduction to Project Management. In this session, we will describe the course, its focus and objectives. We will also introduce and learn the definition of projects and project management. This session is intended as an introduction to the concepts, principles and tools of project management and describe how project management fits in today's organizations. We will discuss the role of the project manager and how the project manager influences project success. This session will introduce project management practices used in most projects being executed today. Projects get more visible in today's work environment because of their impact on a company's economical success. Project managers are becoming more vital to the success of their organizations, success being measured by a project being executed on schedule and within budget. We will give you and show you ways in which successful project managers get things done on schedule and within budget. Course objectives are to identify the principles and terminology of project management. We will review the process groups and knowledge areas that make up project management and demonstrate how to apply these processes. We will teach you to manage a control scope, the cornerstone of a successful project. We'll present ways to manage and control time and cost, the foundation, and we'll show how to manage and control quality and risk, essentials to project success. As an overriding fact, we will focus in communications and stakeholder managing, the individuals who are part of the process who need to make sure that they are involved, and we will pull all this together by using something called project integration. Throughout the course we will hopefully give you a solid foundation in the remaining knowledge areas of the project management body of knowledge, which are resources and procurement management. In addition, you'll be learning about other areas of business management that relates to project management and some skills that helps the project manager be successful. The course also includes information about the Project Management Institute, the PMI, and we'll deal with something called Project Manager Institute Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge. That's a lot of projects in there, so we are going to simplify this and say the PMBOK Guide. Now it's developed and presented in sections that correspond to the major areas of the PMBOK Guide. Each section contains lessons which discuss the essentials of the topic, and these lessons contain questions, scenarios and thought exercises. Those are put there to facilitate learning and give practical relevance to the content. These exercises are there just for you. You don't need this in any papers, or anything for grading, but it's a chance for you to apply the material to your own situations, so we do suggest you take advantage of it. So let's give an example of a thought exercise. In your world, what is project management? Is it a formal process? And established procedures and methodologies? Is it informal, lots of room for creativity and improvising, or is it something else? Or, is a new world? Well, it could be either. Basically, we like to say hopefully is managed, and there are some procedures and methodology to make it more structured. Now, that doesn't say that creativity and improvising isn't going to be a function of a project manager's role. We will see in some case studies later on how important that is, but the idea is that there is some process and procedures to give discipline to the object of project management. Okay, so we've talked about everything with the word project in it, but what is a project? What does it really mean to talk about a project? A project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service or result. That's the definition. Let's look at some keywords here. Temporary. I like projects that have a beginning, and a middle and an end. I don't like projects that go on forever. The second word is unique, products or service result, unique. What does unique mean? That means one of a kind. Now it's interesting that they can be slightly different. For instance, if you are a developer building houses, you can have 50 houses that you need to build. What you get about project for each of one of those houses, because each one will be slightly different, the land will be different, the layout will be different, hopefully the houses wouldn't be too cookie cutter or everyone would be exactly the same. Projects stand with uniqueness are different than operations. Most of us deal in an organization with operations management, that's doing things in a process-oriented way. If you are in an assembly line installing windshields on cars, for instance, you are going to install 50 or maybe 100 windshields depending on the type of cars being assembled, but you are going to be doing the same thing continuously. That's what we call an operation. Projects are a one-time thing, they are unique or one of a kind. The other thing we talked about in terms of project management is we have what's called progressive elaborations. We know more about the project as we proceed. In operations, the industrial's engineers have set up the procedures and all kinds of things, so you can manage to be effectively operating in the operations world, installing windshields. In the project, we are producing or building a one-of-a-kind thing. We don't know a lot of things up front, but we do learn more and we want to take advantage of that progressive elaborations, knowing that we learn more. So when we talk about projects, we put them in a context, and a context is basically in 3 or 4 areas. We talked about project management. We also talked about program management. In relation to projects, we also talk about portfolio management and something which has come into existence in the last 10 or 20 years is something called the project office. So let's talk a little about them and what we are going to focus in on this course. Project management, well, we used to say it's the art of creating the illusion that any positive outcome was resold or predetermined deliberately next when in fact we knew it was pure luck. In fact, I used to say that the first one was luck, the second one was a coincidence, and if that project manager was successful, the third one, then I wanted to go find out what he or she was doing because we wanted to capture that for the organization. Oftentimes that's what we find. Sometimes we just kind of thrown in things and hopefully we will be successful and our boss says, great job. Well, what project management really is, it is the application of knowledge, skills, tools and techniques to all our project activities to meet the project requirements. It's a discipline which balances competing demands for a scope, time, cost, quality, risk, resources, and we call this knowledge areas. It's often been said that, I'll give you a scope and time and cost, because time is money, right, and quality, but you're going to get it like any two, you can't get it all three. What project managers are trying to do is balance it, so you can get all three. It's also trying to recognize that in any projects there are different expectations, and those expectations fall into two areas. The first is the identified needs, the explicit ones, and then the second, which is more difficult, are the unidentified needs, the implicit ones. In fact, it is oftentimes the role of the project manager to take the unidentified needs and make sure that they are identified. So how do we do that? How do we use all the skills and knowledge and be successful? We do it through a series of processes, and the PMBOK guide talks about processes. We will go through them a little, but the idea is basically, a process is a way of taking inputs and doing some things with that input so that we get an output. It's a series of activities that bring about a specific result. Now, in the project world there are two types. There are product processes, which are the processes we use to create the deliverables and the end products of the project. They are often industry or application specifics, so if we are doing an information technology project we might use certain techniques and processes to get information and build the software. However, if we are doing a drug development study in the pharmaceutical industry we would have a different set of processes to get to our end deliverables. Project processes, however, are a little bit more uniform. These are the ones we are going to focus on in this course. The Project Management Institute (PMI) has put them into 5 categories called process groups. All processes follow steps to accomplish tasks. Project processes may be new to us, and they make the project management unique, so let's take a look at these 5 process groups that can be found in the PMBOK guide. The first is initiating. I like to say it's the "let's just do it" phase, and oftentimes that's what you find. That's the only process that happens on the project. Let's go do it, and then everything else falls apart from there. But a good project manager knows that the next process group is the planning. Well, that's great, but how are we going to do it? How are we going to get there? And then once we've got our plan, okay, now that I know where I'm going, what are the organized steps we take to get the work done, which is called executing. Hopefully it's just not somebody saying, okay, let's just do it. No, it's executing. But how do we know how we're doing? And that becomes monitoring and controlling. How are we doing it? And the last process group is closing. Remember I said, I just don't like projects that go on forever. Which answers that proverbial question, are we done yet? Are we there yet? Well, how do we close the project? Now, this diagram shows how we start with the initial phase of a project. We start through the initiation process, and then you notice as we move forward that monitoring and controlling kind of embraces or surrounds the planning and executing. As we move forward with planning and executing, we will constantly be monitoring our work and controlling our work. And as the diagram shows, this is not a sequential set of steps that we go through, like we start at number 1 and progress through steps 2, 3, 4 and then 5, and then I'm done. In the planning and executing phase and monitoring and controlling, things are running into each other, clashing, meaning the interest of one does not at times match up with the other activities. This is normal, things don't always go smoothly, plans change during execution. That's why we need to be monitoring our work and controlling the work. Now hopefully, when we get to the closing step, if we've done the things we should have done, and initiating, and I know and I need to find what it is and we are going to be done, then we will be able to do the exit phase or end the project. Notice also that we've talked about phases there. You can treat each of the phases of a product life cycle, steps that we are going to do in terms of a product processes, as individual projects. So, oftentimes, a large project will be broken down into several sub-projects or smaller projects. So what does it give us? An organized, disciplined approach to managing a project. Now you will see more about the 5 process groups later on. Okay, so we've talked about project management and what it fits, and how does it work, but what is it really about? Well, it's about deliverables, getting things done, but it's also about people and, as I mentioned before, time and cost. And throughout, it is this idea of uncertainty, and what we need to do as project managers is, we've said it, balance those different things, and that's one of the focuses that the course will provide for you. Well, how about other things we might want to bring into the play? How about detail plans, which to measure ourselves, a language, a culture if you went for asking questions and understanding answers. And a methodology to quickly realign people on project in response to change. Because believe me, when you're given a project, changes are going to happen. So, project management encompasses all of these things and tries to put into a discipline that you can follow. Okay, so we've talked about projects, what they are, we talked about project management, what about other things I've talked about, programs, okay? Well, program is a group of related projects, okay? Or sub-projects and sometimes other work, okay? It's managed in a coordinate way to obtain benefits not available for managing individually. Programs normally have a larger scope and more significant benefits. They tend to be kinda strategic and mission critical, they may align with many different projects and other work, operations work, such as a goal can be achieved. Programs sometimes are repetitive or cyclical undertakings. For instance, you might have a fundraising program if you work for a non-profit organization, you continuously trying to raise money. If you are a magazine's company, you might have the idea of publishing a magazine as a program, because you got to pull separate projects, the photography, the writing, the printing. All those things in a gather, and then you might do it again on the next version of the magazine. So, a program tends to be a little bit more strategic or a higher level. Program management, then, is the application of knowledge and skills and tools and techniques to meet the program's requirements, and to obtain those benefits that you couldn't get by managing them as individual projects. More cohesive whole, if you would. We say it harmonizes the projects and program components and kind of taking all those interdependencies, organizing them. There actually is a standard for program management and a certification for it. So, the Project Management Institute has recognized that program management is a key function for organizations in a way which they organize projects oftentimes. Now, what's a portfolio? Is it all the projects managed by a project manager during his or her career? Is it all the active projects in the organization? Or just a group of projects connected by communal comm? All the above? Or none of the above? Well, portfolios are kind of a mix of those. It's programs and other work managed as a group to achieve strategic objectives. Or a group of projects with a common purpose is the definition of a portfolio. Now, what does it mean to you? Well, organizations, and this tends to be very strategic, normally develop portfolio management responsibility of the senior managers and the management team to determine what project or programs are we going to do. We got limited resources, we'd love to do everything, but we can't, so how do we maximize the balance of this project, financial projects, operational projects, all those kinds of things? We got limited resources, we got limited people, so how do we effectively manage and balance those resources? Portfolio and portfolio management are the processes of deciding what projects to do and by the way what projects to cancel. And you could be in that project and all of a sudden decide that it doesn't have the strategic input to fit within the project portfolio. Finally, the last term you'll hear are the sub-projects, and sub-projects are, just small little pieces of a project. As I mentioned before, you can take a project and break it down in the phase, so in an information technology project you might have the initiation phase consist of requirements and that would be ran as an individual project. The next might be a design process, where you go through and actually design how you're going to build the software. And then you might have an implementation project, all within the same large system, that you're going to build, the project to build the system. But the sub-projects are discrete projects, that are you use to get results. This oftentimes works because the skill sets necessary to do requirements, is different from the skill set necessary to do design and certainly the skill set necessary to do the actual coding. One last thing, as I mentioned that is becoming more and more relevant, is a Project Management Office, or PMO. That's an organizational body or entity assigned various responsibilities to the centralized and coordinated management of all the project for the organization. The responsibilities of a PMO can range from providing support or just actually providing resources or actually directing all the project. It's an organizational entity, it's organizational decision. Many organizations use PMO as kind of a help desk if you would, for project managers, but I've seen other organizations where all of the senior project managers for important critical projects that are a part of a significant portfolio be coming from the PMO. So, what have we talked about? Well, we talked about the course, its focuses, its objectives and how it's designed. We've introduced definitions of projects and project management and we've given you an overview what the role of a project manager is. We will spend more time with what the role of a project manager is, in the session number 3. So, do you have a PMO in your organization? Do you have somebody you can go to get answers to your questions? Do they have people that have knowledge of project management principles and that you can use as kind of mentor in that regard? If not, there is something that you are going to have to say, oh, where am I going to get this information, okay? For an exercise, review the glossary found in Part 3 titled Glossary on page 639 in the PM Box 6th edition. It will help you understand the meaning of words used in a new language you are learning called project management. Thank you very much, and we will see you again in Session 2 where we will introduce you to the Project Management Institute and the project management body of knowledge.